when people say toxic masculinity. You took the term toxic and you applied it to masculinity to tear down men. And the reality is...
You think someone walking into church today with the Marine outfit on is less respected than when you said you did it?
Well, what's the climate like out there? Are people... Is it divisive? Is it hopeful? What do you find?
First of all, I am okay with division. Yes, this makes everybody crazy that I say this, but I say it because this idea of unity makes no sense if you're not unifying for the right reasons. Unity in a political sense today means you be quiet while we run roughshod over your rights and take all your tax money, and we'll send it to whatever country we want, and it doesn't matter that there are homeless veterans. No public school should ever have a job fair that doesn't include at least one branch of the military.
At least one.
Every Marine who fought for the United States. I want to dedicate it to my uncle, John Basilone.
Welcome to Johnny's Girls Podcast. Today, Lee and I are here with our special guest, Bill Spadea from 101.5. Welcome. And
great to be here.
Coming.
Thanks, Kim. Thanks, Lee.
So excited to have you.
Really excited to be here. First, let me comment on the quality of the equipment.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
I love it. I mean, this is a super nice space. Love the mural. Great. This is great setup.
Thank you
great
so much.
Honor for an American hero.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Well, we're super excited to have you.
Yes.
Thanks.
We wanted to start just by talking a little bit about your military background. So how you joined the Marines.
I did it in a very unconventional way. I went to Boston University, graduated in 1991, and during my senior year was the first Gulf War.
Okay.
And, this was when the term came out, Gulf War coverage, the 24/7 news cycle. At the time, it was only CNN. You didn't have a million of these cable stations out there. And it was nonstop. And now the history of my family, my grandfather was at Guadalcanal. He was in the Marine Corps.
Wow.
And so I had always thought about it.
Okay.
But then I decided after high school, I got into BU. I'm like, I'm going to go to college. Thinking if I still wanted to be in the service, I could do it after. But instead of going the normal path where I was getting a college degree and I could have become an officer, I enlisted. And it was March of my senior year, and I was ready to go. And the recruiter said, "Hey, we're going to wait till you graduate." So that's it. I went to Paris Island. They waited. They deferred me until November. I graduated in May. Had to go find a couple of odd jobs to make ends meet, and then I went to Paris Island in November. So it was November 1991.
Nice.
How was your experience on Paris Island?
It was exactly what everyone talks about. It was, and every group of Marines comes out and they're like, well, we had it way tougher than these kids that are going in now.
Right.
So, you hear all the stories of the old guys. And I think it certainly was a lot tougher 50, 60, 70 years ago. But Paris Island's an incredible experience. I mean, physically super demanding and mentally really demanding. And I was telling the story on the air the other day that I don't know if this happens today at all, but I was in boot camp with a couple of young guys that had gotten themselves in trouble, and the judge gave them a choice. You're either, this also goes off during my radio show, and it drives everyone crazy. And I'm like, yeah, but how do I know?
No problem.
I may have to answer something. You never know. But there were a couple guys that they had been given a choice, like you're going to jail. Or we're shipping you off to the Marines.
Wow.
And I loved that. And these were some of the sharpest guys that I was with because they had the incentive. They're like, we can't screw up. We can't get kicked out. We got to see this all the way through because otherwise we know what's waiting for us. I don't know if we do it today, but I think we should. So I joined, I enlisted as what was known as a 4x4 reservist. So I would do 4 years of active reserve and 4 years of inactive reserve. And I'll never forget it because when I signed up for artillery, and I did that because the reserve station was in Philadelphia. So I knew I was going to have to go through my, training, 13 weeks of Paris Island and infantry training and everything the Marine Corps puts you through. But I wanted to come out because my intention was to move back to where my family was in Jersey. Well, they assigned me to an infantry unit in Massachusetts because my station was in Boston because I enlisted when I was in college.
Right.
So that was my first battle. It was on deployment day, when you're at the MEP station in Boston and they're going through all your physicals and everything else. and I had the wrong paperwork. So I had to go to this, this guy who locked in, tough guy Marine, and tell him, excuse me, you guys made a mistake. That did not go over well. That was the first battle with bureaucracy that I had. And anyway, we sorted it, and the rest is history. But it was great. A lot of great guys that I served with. For me, it was interesting. God always has a plan. I enlisted when the first war was going on, but the Marine Corps saw fit to defer me. And I didn't know why. The reason is because not a lot of guys enlist after they get a college degree. So one of the things that I went through at Parris Island was the drill instructors trying to get me to sign a contract to renew as an officer and transfer to Quantico, which I didn't want to do. I didn't want a career as a Marine. I just, honestly, I wanted to see if I could do it. I'm like, I just wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And it was worth every minute of it. But I got in as the Gulf War ended, and then my 8 years were up in 1999. So I was discharged, honorable discharge in 1999 before 9/11.
Wow.
So a lot of the guys I served with, they stayed in and went to Iraq, went to Afghanistan, but that was not the plan for me.
Well, speaking of Parris Island, we had the opportunity to get a little taste of it. We were invited for a workshop.
Yeah.
Okay, we only went for 4
how was
days.
that?
It was an
Well,
experience.
where did you
An
stay? You stayed on the base?
No.
No, we stayed in a
All right,
hotel.
okay, all right. Oh, I'm
right
sorry.
off site.
Well,
We
it
did
wasn't
the
that
whole-
crazy
But
an
wait a
experience.
minute. We got up at 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
We got on the bus.
All right.
We went on those yellow
They
footprints.
got you on the yellow feet?
Yep. Got on
We
the
got-
What a
footprints.
jarring experience that is.
It was.
Oh my
No.
gosh.
Did they run you through it? Like they got on the bus screaming at you and
They
you
yelled and
shuffling off to get
screamed
on the
at
feet?
us.
Yep. Had
Yeah.
to call home. Had to
As they're
call,
screaming in your ear.
Read the script on the telephone.
Wow.
That was.
It's wild.
It was wild.
Now,
It was
we
wild.
didn't get to call home.
No?
Well, funny, when I went, there was they sent out messages and
okay.
ham radio operators
Right.
actually deliver the message that you got there okay. We got on the yellow feet and they sent us into whatever, now I forget, you go through this an archway and you sit at a desk
Yeah.
and they're screaming at you at the desk. Like you can't have your elbow on the desk and they give you that last chance to get rid of your contraband.
Right. Right.
There was a pile like this in the front of the room. Guys are coming up, cigarettes and everything you can imagine. And that was your last chance. And some guys were not smart enough to take advantage of that. And then, you deal with it. But all of a sudden, then they're shaving your head.
Yes.
You're signing
But
a
we
contract.
didn't do that. They skipped us
I'm
through
glad
that.
they skipped a few things for you
Yeah,
guys.
for the 4 days we were there, they didn't think
But
it was
emotionally,
worth
what
it.
was it like feeling that?
Oh my gosh, I got chills as soon as I stepped
was.
on those yellow footprints.
Right.
The yellow footprints.
It makes you emotional.
Yeah,
Like even
yeah.
being there for the few days that we were,
Yeah.
it was such an emotional experience. You could really
Yeah.
just tell how life changing that is.
Did you get to watch a graduation ceremony?
did.
Yes, that
Yeah.
was.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Powerful, emotional.
Oh.
Like you think these are young guys and young women who are ready. They're ready to sacrifice. They're ready to fight. They're ready to give their lives for their country. It's amazing. So off the parade deck, you're on this massive parade deck. Maybe it's I haven't been back since I graduated, so I don't even know. Maybe it's not as big as I thought it was. It looked huge when I was there, but there's a barracks across the parade deck. So I was in 1st Battalion, and that's where our barracks were. So every Friday, I had to watch another graduation.
Graduation.
I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
it was torture. You're like, I'm so ready to get out of here.
I'm
But
telling you,
what an
though,
experience, right?
For the men and women that go through that, I give them so much credit, and it's an experience that you wish everybody could experience.
Yeah.
Seriously. Before you even make up your mind of what you're going to want to do
Mm-hmm.
after you get out of high school, whatever it may be, just go through that.
And it was an educational workshop too, because
Yes.
they wanted to kind of show the
Yeah.
career paths that the Marines could take you through, and
Yeah.
where you can end up.
But I love that they didn't dumb it down. They were screaming at you.
We
that.
walked
It
down
was
the,
intense.
the
Don't
water
make
tower.
it what it isn't.
water
right?
tower.
We did the rappel
Yeah.
tower.
Did
That
you?
was- yes.
Did-
That was
oh, wow.
scary.
Yes.
My toughest thing was I now have much better balance in my 50s than I had in my 20s. I don't know why. I credit hot yoga with it, but I didn't have all the balance. So the obstacle course was a disaster for me.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The rope,
The rope.
halfway across, falling in the water. And I was there when it was cold. It was December and January, freezing cold, so that you can't feel your fingers. And you just, but those are just some memories that pop up. But what
the
a
monkey
great
bars
experience!
did me in, but Kim was great.
I love it.
Kim killed it out there. Yeah,
I
she
love
was
it.
like,
But you realize there's a method to every single thing that you're doing. Every part of that training gets you ready for what you might have to face
gas
in the
chamber.
field.
But
Wasn't
they
that
didn't-
gross? Did you guys?
I went in,
Okay.
but they didn't have it as high as they normally would.
Yeah.
No, we
what they
didn't.
don't tell you is.
Yeah, we didn't come out like gagging and all.
Oh, really?
But it was. You felt a little
Yeah.
something.
Even to be in there,
Yeah.
it takes a lot of guts. I give you guys a lot of credit for going through it. I remember that we were sharing gas masks. Oh, it's gross.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh my
the guys come out and they're like, here. I'm like, no, what are you talking about?
Like,
what are you, and worse. And worse, yeah, that was an experience. Oh, I forgot all about that. Maybe I just kind of suppressed that.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Had that tucked far away. You know, what happened?
So when you were there, did you hear about John Basilone? Because his name came up. It always comes up in boot camp. They tell us. Did it come up?
Maybe
at all,
now.
or- okay.
No, I don't remember.
Okay.
And I've said this to you as well. Like the fact that I talk about this on the air, and we don't have this in every
Right.
middle school and high school.
No.
Why is John Basilone not discussed? This should be the first course in every history class. Honestly, they ought to start teaching this stuff in grammar school all the way up through high school.
I agree.
There's no attachment. People don't know, like, who? Who, like, and maybe they have some inkling of a Medal of Honor winner, or they see the signs for the parade. Thank God that you guys have kept up all this time. But there's no, and part of the problem, in my opinion, is that our society has tried to dumb down heroism, courage, and masculinity in
We're gonna
particular.
bring that up.
Yeah, and you've got so this idea. Once they come up with this term, and I hate this term, and I every time it comes up, this is what triggers me when people say toxic masculinity. Said you took the term toxic and you applied it to masculinity
Right.
to tear down men. And the reality is, and what was such an incredible experience at Paris Island, and I thank God that I went, is that they take what in many cases are teenagers and boys, and they turn them into men. And that is something
That's their goal.
that doesn't happen in society. Instead, men are torn down. They're like, you're this whole concept of opening a door, this whole concept of chivalry, the concept of men being protectors, that has been there's been an attempt at erasing that. And I think that's part of the problem. So you think about our heroes like John Basilone and the lives they had to take in defense of their country, and more directly the men they were serving with.
yeah.
And we don't talk about that.
No.
Like we've made it like it's all about, and I've said this, that if you look at the rates of PTSD among American service members versus Europe, England in particular, the UK, we have something in the neighborhood, and don't quote me on the numbers, but this is just over the last 10 years or so, somewhere 30 to 35%. In the UK, it's 3 to 4%. Now, why is that? Are their soldiers tougher? No. We have a culture that diagnoses everything as a disorder.
Right.
And prescribes something. So and I've said this, I've been on this for years, saying stop making everything a disorder. Not everything is. There are a lot of guys that saw some really, really horrible things, and they need support. And I think the best way we can support them is not to send them to a psychiatrist or a psychologist, but we ought to have parades, and we ought to celebrate the heroism and say, no, what you did was incredible.
Right.
There are people that are alive today because of the lives you saved. Those men went on to be fathers, and their kids are doing great things. And that's because of your heroism, your courage under fire. So to me, I served in a peacetime military. The heroes are the guys that went and fought and were shot at. And these guys, we ought to be talking about them every day.
So you need to build them up and let people know
I
what
think
they've
so.
done and why we
Yes.
really are here with our freedom.
Yes. There's no understanding of the real foundation of this country. This country was founded with blood, sweat, tears, fighting, hostilities. And it's almost like we pretend that we just landed here and it's all happy. And that's why you see the trends. And I don't want to make it political, but there's a reason why young people are voting for people like Mamdani in New York. It's not because all young people are a bunch of communists, but they're like, yeah, he's talking to us about what we've pretty much been promised our whole lives. You're going to get a job. You're going to have a house. This is America. Everything comes easy.
Everything comes
No, it
easy.
doesn't. No, it doesn't.
gotta work for
and
it.
it starts with a lack, in my opinion, of not understanding what some of these heroes like John went through.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of our big missions too with the foundation is
Yeah.
just bringing awareness, to his legacy and really sharing
Yeah.
that story. Yeah.
So how can we better support our veterans and their families? And
Well, as I said before, I don't know if maybe we were live at the time, and I hope some of the outtakes will get to the podcast. 'Cause I think I always say this in the radio studio: the funnier show is in between the breaks.
oh yeah,
It's what's
of
all
course.
being discussed when everyone thinks cameras are off.
Like bloopers. I think bloopers
right,
are
exactly.
great.
But I was there are people like Colonel Scott Rudder. Who served faithfully in the Marines and led men into battle, and he now runs a company which I believe they do logistics or government services, but he only hires veterans. And he's at every veteran event that I've ever gone to. He's there, and he just wrote a book, and I'll plug the book. I can't remember he just texted it to me too, but we'll put a little banner up on the bottom perhaps, and I'll plug it in the article. But the point is that I think we have to partner with the guys that are already out there advocating.
Right.
To me, it's about unifying all these different organizations around the state. So a lot of the veterans groups, it happens isolated and in a vacuum. So I'll give you an example. In Kinnelon and Butler, the VFW was flooded out a couple of years ago. So my good friend Sean Mabey, who supports veterans and is a council member in Kinnelon, he's like, hey, can I come on the show and talk about this? And we got to raise some money. And we were able to effectively get the word out, and their GoFundMe page got enough money that they could replace the floor and the bar. But the point is, nobody in South Jersey necessarily knew about that until we kind of brought it out on the radio. And there are tons of little advocacy groups all over the place. There ought to be starting a sense of, hey, how do we work together and move forward and make sure that returning veterans feel that they can get a job in New Jersey, that they're going to be supported for their service and sacrifice. And it doesn't have to just be combat sacrifice. The guys that are in logistics that are deployed for 6 months, 9 months away from their families, missing the birth of their first kid, missing Christmas and Easter and Thanksgiving. That is a sacrifice. And I know, so the question is, how do we do it? I think it starts with shared cross promotion, and I've made the commitment to you that I'm going to use my broadcast to the largest audience in the state to promote what you guys are doing, because I think it can all start in Somerset County with you've got a bona fide hero that we can use as an example. Say, this is what it means to serve in the United States military.
I like that.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So let's talk about a little bit about your transition out of the military and that time. Like, how did you navigate getting out? Was there something that you wanted to do?
So for me, it was a lot easier than the guys that are away 4 years when it's their whole life. So I went, I did my 6 months training, infantry school, Parris Island, and then I got out. I had delayed a job to go in, and I was asked to get involved in actually it was the 1992 race for president, where President Bush was running for re-election, and a friend of mine was working on the campaign. And when I left, he said, "Hey, think about coming back and working in politics when you get done." So I didn't really have much of a transition because I didn't get deployed.
Okay.
But what I found is that when I got out in 92 off active duty, that there was, at that time, I think we had a lot more respect for military members than perhaps we do now.
Wow.
And it was just walking into the first job interview with my buzz cut, you earned a certain level of respect. I would, even on weekends when I would often wear my blues to church. And I was just so proud to be a United States Marine that it was, if I was going to dress up and put on a suit, I may as well put on the uniform and it was, going to mass like that, the level of respect. So I think in that sense, I had it easy. I also think that growing up in South Jersey in a smaller community, it's a little different. You start to get into these larger communities, it's harder to get the message out. And the truth is, how many people in their family have a veteran?
Yeah.
the recruiting is down, and we see it among police officers, firefighters. Like service is down because people are in. That's why I brought up Donnie in New York, that there's an entitlement among younger people. And, I watch these man on the street interviews that some of these conservative shows do. And I typically don't like that because I think it's unfair to give a gotcha question to somebody. I'm walking out, I'm going to eat dinner, and you're asking me some question.
Right.
I then look stupid with the way I answer it. So I never thought it was fair, and I never do that with any of my broadcasts. But what I noticed was they started asking a question, who's more deserving of housing, a returning veteran or an illegal immigrant? And now, I'm sure they're selecting only the worst ones to prove a point, but just to see a young American say these migrants should have housing over a returning war veteran, it rips you up inside. You're like, how did we? I don't even blame the kid. I think that is decades of cultural poisoning that we don't value that sacrifice. We don't value the uniform. We have to go back. It doesn't have to go back to Norman Rockwell, but the uniform ought to mean something. Every young kid should know what that medal means around his neck.
Right.
So that was a longer answer to that short question.
But someone walking into church today with the Marine outfit on is less respected than when you said you did it? Is it different today?
I think it depends on where you are.
Okay.
That's what I think. I think it depends on where you are. I think if you are, the closer you are to a college campus, probably the worse it is.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it sounds crazy, but
that's the opposite of what you really want.
It's where you ought to be recruiting from. Yeah. I think we went off the rails when we allowed the culture and some of the school administrative folks to not let ROTC recruiting happen at the high schools.
It's amazing the struggle.
Right? No public school should ever have a job fair that doesn't include at least one branch of the military.
At least one.
Right? But we think about it. They've politicized everything. So, in the men returning from Vietnam were hated in large part, not all of them certainly, but there was certainly a cultural backlash that was fueled by an irresponsible media that painted the warriors that were just doing the bidding of the politicians as the problem.
Right.
We see this over and over again. Like right now, federal agents, ICE agents in particular, are being vilified in the media. So now you've got people that are encouraging violence against federal officers because they don't like the politics of what's happening. That's a huge problem. We need to first get back to basics. I can't solve the problem of a 21-year-old who's been brainwashed through a rotten school system and goes to college and is told that America is the worst place on earth. It's all a lie, the 1619 Project and all this rewritten history. It's just not true, but they paint it as America is somehow uniquely bad. Well, if America's uniquely bad in the eyes of an 8th grader and a 9th grader, the guy that wears the uniform, you're part of the problem. So I think, I don't know that I can save the 22-year-old, but you can go back to the 5, 6, and 7-year-olds.
Right.
And we have to think long-term. Nobody thinks long-term anymore. I've said this as a political guy, that when I ran for governor, the idea was I don't have a magic wand. I'm not running to fix the problem overnight. There's some things that should and can be fixed overnight. But for the most part, we have to build back over the next decade to reset this state. So, one of the projects I'm working on now is we launched a new organization, and we're going to be heavily involved in Board of Education elections because they dictate a lot of policy that goes on that influences everything that happens in that classroom. And in that classroom, let's face it, in New Jersey, mom and dad are working 2 jobs, 3 jobs sometimes to make ends meet. They're like ships passing in the night. You barely have enough time to see your kids for their sports game on Saturday. They're spending a lot of time with the teachers. The curriculum actually does matter. So the answer to, maybe it's a couple of different questions, is we've got to get back to a cultural shift of valuing American greatness. And just recently, like tomorrow, I don't know when this is going to air, but on December 10th, today's the 9th.
Right. Yeah.
Right, okay. My days blend sometimes. On December 10th, I'm going to have Linda McMahon, the Secretary of Education, on the show to talk about something that they're promoting called History Rocks. And she is going to all 50 states. She was just in Colts Neck at a middle school. But there were some parents that fought against her visit. And I'm like, what is wrong? What are you even thinking? I remember when they didn't want Condoleezza Rice to speak at Rutgers. So the problem we have is the left plays this game of cancellation and shutdown. And what they don't realize, or perhaps what they do realize, is that the collateral damage are all those public servants, like our soldiers and Marines and airmen and all and all the folks that step up to serve their country. They become the targets of animosity locally because of this cultural shift that somehow we should be guilty as Americans. No, actually, we should be super proud as Americans to the mark we've made on this world, thanks to heroes like John Vassalon. I mean, it really does come down to that.
Yeah. Children's books. Why can't we do children's books with the heroes?
We're
working on it.
We're working on it.
Oh, you're going to write one?
Would love to.
We're getting there.
I love that. You got to let me know. That I would love to promote that. That is fantastic. Yes, this story can be done in a way that doesn't. That's what people don't realize. You can teach the real history. You don't need the blood and guts and gore, but the real history.
It's the message. Yeah, the message.
A little boy who grew up to be a hero.
A hero. Well, how do you they've redefined hero.
Right. So
that's the problem. I remember
what is a hero?
What is a hero today?
What is a hero today?
Right. And I don't know. Is it somebody that changes their pronouns? Like, that's the problem. We have a lot of weirdness going on today. and it's not good. Heroes are people that sacrifice for others, oftentimes risking and losing their lives in the process.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, think of how disparaged police officers are. They're heroes. They run into burning buildings like firefighters. Like they do things that normal people don't do.
Exactly.
I have the segment on the show every Friday, Blue Friday, and we started to do a veteran check-in now every Friday later in the show. So that's something that I'd love to promote this podcast and talk about what you're doing to keep this memory, not just keep it alive, but spread it.
Spread it.
Right. People have to know.
Right.
And on your show, you talk to so many people. Like I would imagine you talk to a wide range of different people. What's the climate like out there? Are people... Is it divisive? Is it hopeful? What do you find?
So that's a great question. I think that, first of all, I am okay with division. Yes, this makes everybody crazy that I say this, but I say it because this idea of unity makes no sense if you're not unifying for the right reasons. Unity in a political sense today means you be quiet while we run roughshod over your rights and take all your tax money, and we'll send it to whatever country we want, and it doesn't matter that they're homeless veterans. That's a problem. So I encourage the divide based on truth. We should be fighting over where our tax dollars are being spent. The divide should be between us, the normals, and this small cabal of elite backroom politicians and greedy corporate leaders who take our money, don't pay their fair share. And now I know you're going to say, oh, it sounds like a big liberal saying that. No, but when you've got billionaires that are able to, like a George Soros, that's able to fund local law enforcement elections for DAs, and then the entire culture of a city changes, that's an enormous problem. And we're not addressing that. So to me, we have, if there's one person in New Jersey who served in our armed forces and doesn't have a roof over their head, that's one too many.
Yeah.
But yet we'll fund these foreign wars, and you've got foreign dictators, including Ukraine, Zelensky, that corrupt fool, taking billions and billions of dollars, not being held accountable to a dollar, yet we have veterans that can't get access to health care. And so what I find is that the people of New Jersey are frustrated. They don't understand how their government could be so far disconnected to what they want. I'll give an example on a detailed policy issue, not to bore everybody, but we don't have in New Jersey the same level of tort reform that they implemented in California. And what that means is, in California, they limited the liability of doctors. So a doctor gets sued, there's a limit to how much you could get from that insurance company. What that did was it allowed the rates to come down, and doctors feeling like, okay, I'm human. If I do something that I make an honest mistake, I'm not going to lose my practice and be ruined. We had hundreds of doctors leaving New Jersey because they won't enact a similar protection here. So now how does that translate? Well, the way they got it through is they vilified the doctors. Oh, these rich doctors driving their fancy cars and their yachts, taking advantage of all the poor folks. Yeah, you know what happened? you made it so risky for them that we lost doctors in Atlantic County, Cumberland County, Salem County, Sussex County, and now veterans have to drive in many cases more than an hour to get medical care. That's a problem. And it was a problem that could have been solved with just a common sense conversation. So what I'm finding is that the audience is angry. They're a little bit desperate because remember, as much as we had a 50% turnout in the last gubernatorial election, 50% of the people didn't vote. So you've got more than 2/3, if you add the folks that can't vote, 2/3 of the state had nothing to do with electing this governor. So we end up in a position where the Democrats increase their strength in the assembly. They are likely to do it again in the Senate in 27. And now they've got a governor coming in able to claim a mandate, yet none of these problems that we're talking about get addressed. That's the problem. The Democrats are a better party when the Republicans are a strong opposition, and vice versa. So the unity has to be among like-minded people who want what we want. We want to honor our American heroes. We want a culture of service and sacrifice and duty and courage. And we want our kids to grow up able to overcome adversity so that they can do better than we did. And unfortunately in New Jersey, it's getting to the point where the next generation not doing better. They're ending up on mom's couch. And does it all have to do with how we treat veterans? No, but it's a cultural shift that we don't value the toughness and the grit that got this country to where we are. So that's a super long answer to what you...
Brought it back.
We got it back, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything you want to share about like the importance of honor and sacrifice? Well, we probably did go through that a lot here.
We need a cultural shift in the country.
Right.
And I am trying to help facilitate that through my broadcast. So New Jersey 101.5, biggest audience in the state, talking 1.5 million people. And what I find is that the people who listen to the radio, they don't all agree with me on
Right.
policy points. And that's a good thing. But we generally agree that we've lost our moral compass in the country in terms of what we value. And we've got a shift toward entitlement where, this is what happens in countries when socialism it gets to a tipping point. It happened in Venezuela.
Right.
It happens in countries where they don't understand the value of hard work. Instead, it's like, hey, this is not fair. I can't afford a house. This guy is running for office saying he's going to give me a house. I'm voting for that guy without any real concept. And that's why when I go right back to the beginning, the minute the culture shifted, that manliness and masculinity
Right.
were frowned upon and
Starts there.
attacked as toxic, it started there because you lost the thread of men being providers. I'm not trying to be the old school guy about specific gender roles, but there are certain roles that it's okay to embrace. And men in particular need to act like men, and that's a good thing. And I think most women that I meet want to be women. They don't want to have to do both roles. They're like, wait a minute, can we actually share the roles here a little bit? I'll do what I do, you do what you do. And that doesn't disparage anybody. Instead, it's uplifting. So we have to get back to that. And when we start to value sacrifice and courage and the strength of how great it is to be a woman and the strength of how great it is to be a man. And the fact that there is biology that separates us, that God had a plan, and you know what? We should embrace who we are. But if we can't get back to that, we're going to be in trouble. And I do think it starts with some simple things. It's not simple from your perspective trying to raise money for a foundation. It's a Herculean effort. I get it. but taking John Basilone and saying, we need to tell this story. We need to tell this story over and over and over again and not shield our kids from it. Don't let them pretend that let's soften the history. No, let's tell the harsh history, the reality of how tough it was, about how incredible it is that a young American man was awarded the Medal of Honor and given an opportunity to spread the word around the country and potentially live a life of luxury. And he's like, actually, I got guys over there that I got to go fight for, and I'm going to re-up and go back to combat, only to lose his life.
Yeah.
And when I think about that, to me, I get chills even thinking about John's story. That story is not told. In today's world, you're more likely to get parents that'll tell kids, that's stupid.
Right.
Take the easy way. You got all the money.
Right.
The minute we got to that point, we were in trouble. We need to get back to mom and dad sitting little Johnny down and saying, no, actually, you should be proud. We should be so lucky to be a tenth of the man that John Basilone was. And that's where the country needs to go. And I'm going to continue to advocate and fight for it. And we'll see what the future holds. But I am really bullish on the future of New Jersey and America. I think just the fact that we're having this conversation, something's coming back. Those 50% of the people that did not vote, you'll never get to 100%. I get that.
Right.
But there's a solid million people out there that are saying, you know what, we're not happy with what's going on here. And you can exercise your vote, but you need to do more than that. You need to begin telling the great American stories. And that's why I'm having Linda McMahon on to tell this story about the greatness of America and why is this administration presenting this to middle school kids around the country to say, no, love this country. This country is great. What kind of a nation, no nation on earth does this except us, that we spend all our time talking about the worst moments in history. Yeah. We ought to be talking about how we overcame some of the worst moments in history and came together as Americans and celebrate that greatness. The 4th of July should mean more than it means today. Memorial Day should mean more than it means today. And we have to get back to that. So we're going to keep fighting.
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
We can all get together and do that, right?
Yeah.
That's what we need.
Let me see if I can get the name of the book, because now I feel like I threw that book out there, and that was totally not fair.
Okay.
Hold on, let me.
got it.
All right, wait. I'm going to tell you. So it's Colonel Scott Rudder, and I would love to get him on, but it's not going to come up for me now because I'm not on Wi-Fi. I'm gonna text it to you.
Okay, and then we'll put it in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's things like it's just one more thing that's out there that you've got veterans that are saying, I want to tell the story too. And for me, I'm a storyteller, and if you're doing this podcast, so are you guys. Let's keep telling stories that are meaningful, and eventually we're gonna get to where we need to be.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank
you
really
so
much.
appreciate it.
Yeah, this was fun.
Yes.
Thanks.
Thank you.
you.